You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. This podcast is brought to you by WhatCulture.com, and we are powered by a global network of fans on MMAshare.com. We have just finished the 155 UFC pay-per-view card. We are not waiting for a few days to think about our thoughts. We're actually jumping in immediately, just because of the New Year's coming up and schedule issues. And helping me talk about this card, fresh from the action, is Marcus Mitchell. Mitchell, my head is scrambled after all of that fighting. How are you doing?
I'm trying to make sense of it all. A new heavyweight champion, a lot of decisions, but it was a good card overall.
It definitely had its moments and its low points.
It had a lot of low points.
And I think the main card sort of encompassed everything. Low point, high point.
Yeah.
And that brings me, I guess, to my first point. We're going to try a different format to this show. We're going to put all of the prelim fights from Facebook and FX in part 1. And then part 2, we're going to just cover the main card. So if you want the whole buffet, all 13 courses of MMA delectableness, you can listen to both parts. If you want to skip ahead to your main, to your entree, then you can listen to part 2. Wow. I think the first fight on the prelim card, Facebook, John Moraga versus Chris Carriazo, Flyweight, which ended in third round submission, which Joe Rogan called a arm-in power guillotine with a Darce grip.
It was just your basic front choke. I mean, it was a fantastic front choke, but it was a front choke, if you want to dumb it down a little bit.
A standing front choke.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought was impressive was that Moraga looked like he won round 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was close. But then I think he realized he'd lost round 2. And he came out looking to finish. And so, hats off. I mean, obviously he realized the situation and went in and took it. I mean, just didn't leave it to the judges.
Yeah, he definitely... It was a very close fight. He came out, and once he landed that choke... I think the second he sunk it, the Carriazo tapped. I thought it was a great fight to start off the night.
It really was. Guillard Moraga almost got knockout of the night back on the UFC on Fox Shogun versus Vera when he clipped Ulysses Gomez. But eventually, other fights came in and he didn't get that bonus. But this being the only submission of the night, he is guaranteed to get submission of the night. So well done, sir. He's got 2 little boys. If you listen to our interview, you can actually hear them in the background. And I'm sure whatever it is, the pay-per-view events normally get 50 to 60,000. I'm sure that's going to be a very nice little addition to the Christmas tree.
Yeah, submission of the night. Wonderful thing, especially for the first fight of Facebook fighter. That's big.
Yeah, no kidding. Was there anything that you took away from this fight? Anything special other than the fact that Chris Carriazo sort of has crazy eyes? Like they're kind of a combination of Psycho with bug eyes, and they kind of make him that extra level of Jim Jones type crazy?
I took away that the lightest of lightweight classes really can be exciting. Flyweight division has a lot of good fighters to offer, and Moraga's one to watch.
One thing I did notice, in the interview, Moraga wasn't trying to tip his game plan.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do. And I think it was pretty obvious in watching the first 2 rounds what he was trying to do. He was trying to be aggressive, constantly approaching and trying to force exchanges, but looking to counter. So he was trying to create situations where Carriazo would go off and then counter him. But Carriazo was extremely cautious, so I think he kind of created a very uneven pace the first 2 rounds. The other thing I noticed is Moraga called himself not a boxer. I said he had good hands, and he said, no, I like to think of myself more as a kickboxer. But I think at the end of round 2, the number of kicks that landed, Carriazo 26, John Moraga 0.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Chicano John, you're a boxer.
Yeah. 26 at the end of the first round?
No, I think midway through the second round it was 26-0.
My goodness. Yeah. You're a boxer, Moraga. And if
Yeah.
obviously it's got you this far, 12-1 record and submission of the night. Go with that.
Yeah, and I think he did a good job. He really was looking for that left counter hook. He was checking kicks and then trying to throw that left counter hook. But ultimately, it was superior submissions. They got him.
Where do you think this puts him on the flyweight rankings? Do you think it moves him up?
I'd like to see him against Gaudino. I think Gaudino is probably overranked. I think John Moraga will run through him, but might as well give him a chance to fight a guy. I think Gaudino is either 7th or 6th.
You think this puts him inside the top 10?
Oh yeah, Garcia was ranked 7th.
Yeah, he was ranked pretty high. But that would jump him a bunch of spots. I'd like to see that, though.
But I mean, they're not very deep, honestly, the flyweights.
They really aren't.
You want to talk about the next fight? Your favorite fighter in the world?
My favorite, yeah. Absolutely.
Leonard Garcia versus Max Holloway. Can I just say, at the start of the fight, I thought Garcia looked physically a little different. Like, no, normal other fights, he's kind of had sort of that baby fat. Now he looked leaner. At the weigh-ins in particular, he looked like a different guy. But true to form, he gassed within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, he gassed almost immediately, even though he looked a lot better. Which, I mean, if you've seen Garcia fight before, it's his fighting style that does it. He just flails and flails and flails and ends up in split decisions. My favorite guy.
You know, I think the thing about Garcia is that he's got a strange gas tank. So, you know, when you first get into the fight, you can sort of fight at peak level, and a lot of fighters can fight like 6 or 7 minutes at peak level. You know, or if you're a guy like Ben Henderson, you can fight full 15 at peak level. Mm-hmm. Garcia can fight at peak level for literally 90 seconds.
That's it. But then I think once he gets out of the gas tank, he goes with that.
But right, that's the other thing, is that he fights really well at being gassed, because he fights almost every fight at gassed. Mm-hmm. He's like the Mexican zombie. The
Mexican zombie. But he's not quite as good as the Korean. But he fights so well at that, and it also always seems that his opponent is also just as gassed as he is. A normal fighter with a very high level of conditioning gasses himself out with Garcia, and I guess it has to do with his fighting style. His fighting style is so much different than other fighters. He just comes at you and flails and hopes to hit something. But I've really never seen him be that effective with it.
Here's the thing, I think your fighting style I think his fighting style that you brought up is a point worth talking about. And I think this is why he is the split decision king. In fact, we're trying to give fighters nicknames, and Bad Boy, quite frankly, is a pretty blasé nickname. His nickname should be Leonard Split Garcia. And here's why he's a split decision fighter. Because he can come forward and lose. Mm-hmm. And I think that's confusing for judges, that he can be the aggressor but lose. He can be outstruck, outworked, but still come forward.
We saw that with Nick Diaz and Carlos Condit. Nick Diaz continually came forward but didn't get the nod, and that's how Garcia fights all the time. It's confusing to see somebody that is full steam ahead and flailing but not really being effective.
It's kind of shocking because his coach is Greg Jackson. I did think that he held it together for most of the first round before he went into Mexican zombie mode. Mm-hmm. El Zombo. Can we call him El Zombo?
We'll go with El Zombo. I did like Split, but...
Oh, there you go. The Split Zombie? Zombie Split.
There you go.
Split Zombie. When you come into Greg Jackson's corner, it's like coming into a bar. We're going to have 2 deep breaths, like we simulated, and then we're in and out. You're in a peaceful place. I kind of want Greg Jackson to talk to me before I make sexy time with my wife. I feel like maybe I'd reach another level. Today we're going to use our hips. We're going to do a little foreplay, kiss on the ear, breathe in, breathe out. You're in the zone. This is your fight.
I love how he always says, go ahead and breathe. Just breathe.
Yeah, he kind of comes across like a little bit of a self-help guru more than a fight coach. I do appreciate that he gives you actual technical advice rather than saying, knock this fucker out. Can we talk about Holloway for a second?
Yeah.
So Joe Rogan has this new thing, and his new thing is talking about leg reach. Because damn it, regular reach just it's descriptive enough. We want to know how far their legs can get. And of course, Max Holloway, he's 5'11", and he's a featherweight. How far can his legs kick? I think this is literally the 3rd event he's mentioned this. Any other Joe Rogan memes that you want to bring up?
The tie cup.
There it is.
The tie cup. It seems like any time anybody gets kicked, it comes to the tie cup. Even, I think recently Goldberg said that the fighter was wearing a tie cup, and Rogan was like, oh, well, there you go. But he was still in pain.
The truth is that if you get kicked full onto the groin, unless you got a vajayjay down there, it's going to hurt. And you know what? It may hurt with a vajayjay. I don't know. I've never kicked a woman in the groin and asked her what it felt like. Max Holloway, he's kind of a funny-looking dude. He doesn't look like a fighter. He kind of looks like an extra for Napoleon Dynamite.
He does look like an extra in some movie. He's very skinny, and I mean, I guess that makes sense for the weight class, but it definitely doesn't show as much on a Leonard Garcia as it does on a guy like Max Holloway.
Well, he's got 3 inches on Leonard Garcia. There's a movie called Road Trip where they have that little nerd that they borrow his car.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think his name is it DJ Qualls or Qualls? Yeah, DJ Qualls, that guy. He's in Road Trip. The new guy. He's the lead actor in The New Guy.
He's the lead
Max
actor, yep.
Holloway looks just like that guy with those ears. The other thing about Max Holloway, he's got wings tattooed on his back, just like Benson Henderson. Is this going to be the new MMA tramp stamp?
I noticed the same thing while he's fighting. Sure, MMA fighters have a lot of dumb tattoos. We'll talk about Alan Belcher later.
Yes.
But that I don't know. That's getting to be too mainstream. But if we're talking about people that Holloway looks like, I would say he looks like Christian Bale in The Machinist, I guess.
Actually,
he is extra skinny.
I wonder if he smokes as much. That movie was really uncomfortable to watch. Max Holloway kind of changing up the wings on the back thing. Bindo, angel wings. Max Holloway, kind of a deep thinker. 1 angel wing, 1 bat wing.
Is that what he has?
Yes, the duality of man, good and evil.
Oh, I just looked at it and said, that is a horrifyingly played out tattoo. I didn't even notice that. That's
Yep.
even worse.
Yep. Like the little devil and the little angel on either shoulder. Kick him in the nuts! Don't do that. Grapple him.
Grapple, and that's what the whole card was about. But seriously, this fight, I mean, we knew Garcia was going to be in it. We knew that it had to come down to some type of a split decision. But it really seemed like by the end of the second round, you couldn't tell if your stream on Facebook was lagging or if the fighters were really that slow. It was just slow motion fighting.
We can talk about slow motion fighting. We'll get to the main card. But the funny thing is, split decision lost to Garcia, but this is actually the fight he should have won by a split decision.
Right. I thought he was robbed. For the first time in his career, I thought he was robbed by split decision.
Yeah, karma is a dirty, dirty whore. That's the lesson of the day.
But you know what? I'm glad it finally caught up to him. I actually thought that he somehow won the main event by split decision. I thought that should have gone to Leonard Garcia.
I thought it was 12 split decisions for Leonard Garcia. Let's talk about the last fight on the Facebook prelims. Todd Duffee, TKOs, English grappler, Phil DeFries. First round, 2 minutes and 4 seconds. We had some fun with Todd Duffee and his body language.
We did. Throughout the fight, we were talking about him. Well, you brought it up. Him being a cheerleader. Well,
the way he stands and the way he sort of moves reminds me of a teenage cheerleader, like a teenage teeny bopper, like a girl. Because I mean, kind of like the way he puts his hip out, or he puts his hand on his hip. Yeah. Just the way he moves, kind of like, yay, team!
And when he's doing that, I guess he's hopping back and forth, standing in his own corner. Just the way his spine kind of is like jelly while he's going back and forth. For such a gigantic-looking farm boy type guy, it is very, very feminine. But yeah, he came out in this fight and looked fantastic.
He sure did, and I'll have to admit, every time Phil DeFries put a glove on Todd Duffee's chin, 911 on speed dial,
yeah.
I was expecting his head to pop off like a Pez dispenser.
Right, which is so weird for a guy his size, but his chin really has been that suspect in his last 2 losses, but he took him, he ate him, and he kept going. I think he really surprised a lot of people, including myself in this fight.
Well, you and I both agree, I believe, that this should be KO of the night.
It really should. I thought that it was above the other 2 on the card.
Todd Duffee has some power. No question.
No,
he's a big kid, 250, 6'3", big boy.
And he should have that type of power. And he's also got what I feel a lot of fighters in MMA these days are lacking. He's got that will to finish, and he doesn't want to spend 15 minutes fighting. He wants to come out and get it done. And I really appreciate that.
Impressive return. Hats off to Duffee. Obviously, the guy has had his ups and downs, so you don't ever wish bad things on a guy, except if his name is the Split Zombie. But now I kind of feel bad for him, the Split Zombie, for losing a split decision.
No, I can't feel bad for him in that. It had to come back and get him. He beat the Korean Zombie by split decision. Everybody knows he lost that, and he beat Nam Phan. Nobody in that arena thought Nam Phan lost that fight.
It's racism.
Except for, again, back to the Asian racism.
Yeah.
But Did you hear Rogan in the post-fight interview with Todd Duffee say, "You were one of the most one of the most exciting up-and-coming fighters," and then Duffee gave him a look and he was like, "You still are one of the most exciting up-and-coming fighters."
Yeah. You can be honest or you can suck the guy's dick. Joe Rogan is the only guy that tries to do both. Let's go to the FX card.
Yay. Started off wonderfully.
Here's a big shot. Baby Sugar destroyed by Miles.
Baby Sugar Johnson.
Baby Sugar Johnson. That sounds like a character for a Quentin Tarantino movie. Miles Jury absolutely wrecked Michael Johnson.
He worked him.
Oh, boy, he did.
Johnson is the wrestler. It looked like he wrestled straight out of Britain or something. He had no talent there, and he spent most of the fight on his back. He was training, I guess, with Dan Hardy for his wrestling.
That's a big statement by you. I know how much you love Dan Hardy.
For those of you that don't know, Dan Hardy is my favorite fighter. So
Anglophile, right here. This man is in love with English fighters.
It hurts me to say something like that, but Michael Johnson's wrestling was awful.
It was awful. And Miles Jury, I said this in the previous show, the guy was 9-0, but he hadn't really faced anybody, so I thought his wins were a bit suspect and he would run into a wrestler that would ground him and grind out a decision. Little did I know, Miles Jury looks legit. He absolutely looks like he can make some noise in the lightweight division. He's only 24-2. Very, very, very dominant performance.
The amazing thing about him is that he'd finished all 10 of his fights. He did take Johnson to a decision here, but it was a one-sided, lopsided decision. Watching it, wasn't the most wonderful thing in the world.
I think if you can appreciate the top control, the dominance, throwing elbows and short strikes without giving up a chance for a hip escape, Johnson looked horrible.
The thing about Miles is he was absolutely active the entire time. He wasn't just laying there. He wasn't trying just to hold position. He was putting himself at risk and keeping the position. So that made it fun to watch.
Michael Johnson, Black Zillion. Are we shocked that he's no good on the ground anymore?
I've been talking about this the past couple shows. The Black Zillions, I'm no MMA fighter, but it just doesn't produce the kinds of results that you'd want.
And I kind of feel like maybe they get together and play pool and video games.
I don't know what it is they're doing over there. I mean, they have some name fighters, but really...
a lot of names.
Yeah, but really, since they've been brought on the scene, it's just nothing but dominance by their opponents.
Let's talk about another Black Zillion. Let's talk about Melvin Guillard versus Jamie Varner.
Okay.
I didn't expect Jamie Varner to dominate on the feet like he did. He won a unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board, and he largely stayed on the feet with Guillard.
It wasn't unanimous. It was a split.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
One of the judges lost their mind giving it 30-27.
We actually were talking during the fight, and I think our decision is that the judge accidentally inverted his score and thought, oh, Jamie Varner's the black guy. I'll give 30 to this guy.
Yeah, the judge was like, there's no way the black guy's named Melvin. That's got to be the white guy. Because that's just how dumb these judges have to be to give him a 30-27 in that one-sided drubbing.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't think anybody would have predicted Varner to win in the stand-up here. And before we talked about, I thought he would. I thought actually Guillard would come out and take this easily. So Varner impressed me.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, again, I thought Varner's only chance was to take it to the ground. I think you have to forgive us. We're literally doing this show within minutes of the card ending, and it's all kind of coming together. But I think Varner actually did score some takedowns, but he largely stood and traded. And Guillard looked like the much bigger fighter. He even looked faster, but he was just coming out on the end on everything.
Guillard, he was hitting Varner with a number of shots, but Varner just ate him. But to Guillard's credit, Varner was landing flush with a number of crosses and hooks, and Guillard didn't even flinch. So it kind of made what Donald Cerrone did to Guillard that much better.
What you're talking about is Donald Cerrone is the only guy to knock out Guillard.
Yep.
Both of these guys have chins. I think both of these guys represented themselves pretty nicely. Guillard actually held it together. He didn't go crazy. Jamie Varner has put himself back into the conversation in lightweight, and I think Guillard is kind of who we expected him to be. I don't know if he's gone up or down.
Where do you think this puts Varner in the terms of the lightweights? How far away is he from the belt or even title discussion, do you think?
I don't want to give away part 2 of our podcast, but wherever he is, it's behind Jim Miller.
How about in that fight, in the Melvin Guillard Jamie Varner fight? how scary was it when Guillard was just dumped reverse tombstone style on his head?
I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten it. But when it happened, I literally got a chill because I thought Melvin Guillard was going to be killed.
The camera angle that they showed it from, and I haven't, every replay that they've shown, they didn't change the angle. It looks honestly like his head is right under Varner's rear end, and it just drops right onto the canvas. It really looks scary.
There was one replay they showed from the back,
okay.
And when Varner dropped, Guillard smartly tucked his head towards the cage. But had he not, I thought his neck was going to be broken.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, I was worried.
I was kind of worried. I mean, it's Melvin Guillard. It's not like he's going to cure cancer.
No, but he's still, he's an up-and-coming, not up-and-coming, he is what he is, but he's still a staple of that division, and that's you don't see that in MMA very often, and honestly, I thought it was illegal, but apparently that's not an illegal move.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Guillard was hanging on to Varner, but you brought up a point about him no longer being an up-and-coming talent. At what point does the young assassin need to change his nickname?
Is he 30 now? Is that how old he is?
I think he's 29.
29? I think you're not young
in fighter
anymore.
years, that's 45.
Yeah. You're not young. You're nearing, I guess he would be in his prime towards the back end. Much like Josh Barnett dropped babyface assassin, maybe he becomes something else altogether, no longer an assassin.
Maybe he sticks with assassin, goes just to assassin, and then when he's 34, 35, he goes to old assassin.
There you go. The aged assassin.
The venerable assassin.
The never really realized my talent assassin. He could be that.
Could we just call him the head case Guillard?
There you go. If he stopped dyeing his hair the way he dyes it, he might...
Thong, 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 thong.
He might have a little bit more fight IQ in him. I'm not sure.
If it wasn't for Dennis Hallman, Melvin Guillard could realize his potential of taking over Cisco's identity and actually wear a bikini thong into the ring. I guarantee you he'd go undefeated. I guarantee you that dude is packing like a 6-foot black cobra.
I will give Guillard a little bit of credit here in that he really kept his composure and his emotion together. I mean, he didn't keep it together at all at the weigh-ins. He embarrassed himself at the weigh-ins. But he kept the composure that we're not accustomed to seeing Guillard keep in the first round. He really didn't. He didn't go, all out, just trying to outclass his opponent, throwing strikes. He kept it together. In the later rounds, he did. But I mean, we can put him down as much as he wants. He did look good throughout that fight.
It was a good fight.
Right.
It was a good fight.
He just was beat in every facet.
Yeah. Next fight, Guido Perez versus Byron McMurder Bloodworth. Another guy who we're trying to give a nickname to.
If he's listening, murder Bloodworth.
Murdered. This was a very dominant first-round TKO. Guido put him to the ground, knocked him out. I don't know what else there is to say.
No, there's not much to say there.
Last fight on the preliminary card.
This was on FX. We're just skipping the whole Eric Perez Byron Bloodworth fight.
Yeah, what else is there to say?
I don't know.
It was enough fight. I mean, it's shorter than the Zapruder film.
It wasn't. Was it really that short?
It was 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay.
Just Eric Perez going luchador off the top turnbuckle, and Bloodworth became McMurdered rather than McMurder.
I didn't really even take any notes on that fight, so we can move on. That's fine.
Last fight on the preliminary card: Eddie Wineland versus One Punch Brad Pickett. We have a friend, English Tom, our co-host, who's on opposite Mitchell, noticed Brad Pickett's got a very lovely nose.
He did. He made an observation about it.
Yes, he did. It's always lovely to be able to smell your own ear. He's got the same nose as Anderson Silva gave to Rich Franklin. Did this fight live up to the expectations you had?
I think it did. Before the Jim Miller Joe Lozon fight, I thought it had Fight of the Night written all over it. I definitely think it did, but I was leaning towards Brad Pickett to win. I wanted Pickett to win, but he was... Wineland was on just a different level.
Wineland really... I said this during the fight. Wineland looked a lot like, physically, and in the way he was sort of moving and setting up his strikes, I thought he reminded me of Cerrone.
Oh, he did. Especially physically. He just looks like a smaller version, but exactly like cardboard cutout, miniaturized of Donald Cerrone. And the way he fought kind of mimicked it as well. He was just landing at will and dangerous in every way.
Pickett's shortcoming is that his talent doesn't match his heart.
No, and his size doesn't match his heart either. He's doing everything he can with what he's got, and we've seen what he can do when he lands with that right hand the way he wants to. But it just tonight wasn't his night. He couldn't land at all. And you could see it in his eyes. He knew he knew where his place was in that fight, and he didn't deserve his hand to be raised at any point.
One thing I did appreciate, we pointed out that Eddie Wineland has, I believe, 10 knockout victories, and he put some leather on Pickett, and Pickett never... He got dropped twice, I believe, in the first round, but he never looked in danger. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds silly to say, but he didn't look like he had like the Rashad Evans stank leg, you know? So Pickett, I have to say, for fighting a guy who I think's got the best power in the bantamweight division, I think his chin held up beautifully.
It did. He was hit a number of times and just kept coming.
Here's another thing about the judges. To me, it looked like Wineland won all 3 rounds. Some were closer than the others. The first round I thought was a 10-8. One of the judges scored it 28-29 for Pickett, giving a split decision to Eddie Wineland. Is this another judge that's smoking crack with Kim Winslow?
It must have been the same judge that gave 30-27 to Guillard. It's just Rogan put it. I mean, I'm not a defender of Rogan's negativity in the sport of MMA at times, but he put it beautifully. He said that judge should never ever be welcome to judge anything else in MMA ever again. 30-27, and then you have a 29-28 where it shouldn't have been at all. Pickett, I didn't feel Pickett won 2 rounds. You can make a case maybe for 1, but not 2.
Absolutely. And you take that into account with the 30-27 for Guillard, and then the Leonard Garcia
robbery.
Yeah. I mean, you got 3 fights here, not to mention the officiating, which we'll get to in the main card, and an absolute travesty with Kim Winslow. But this is some really terrible judging, and I think that may have been what led to some of the, from starting from the prelim card on FX and into the first half of the main card, really kind of a crappy event.
It did. I felt that the prelims were what I wanted them to be. I was happy with Duffee's performance. I was very happy with the Guillard-Jamie Varner fight. And
there weren't really any ugly fights in the main card, in the prelims.
No, there wasn't. The prelims, I mean, if you had topped off, put on, maybe a higher level fight, like a Jim Miller-Joe Lozon, if that had been the main event of the prelims, you could call that an FX card.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I was very happy with it. It's just that when we do get to the main card, that's where it's sort of, the crowd, first of all, the crowd booing got to be unbearable, but they really did end up having a point later on. But I was happy with the prelims. That's the end of part 1. Join us for part 2 when we talk about the main card. Lucky Robert Curtis, Marcus Mitchell. See you guys in just a second.